And there's a scene where Idris Elba takes one of the child soldiers and says, "Come to my room." And basically, he's going to get one of the child soldiers that he just used to massacre a village to basically give him some top. And
you know what the difference is right there, Abba?
They probably don't show it.
Yes. Well, y'all, Arkham, you spoiled it. No. Anyway.
I'm just guessing because of how you're setting up. It's very easy to figure that out.
Okay,
Also,
yeah, you're right. But
also, because
that is the difference, though. Your analogy here, your comparison here, is not valid, Abba, purely because of the fact that Beasts of No Nation cut away from that scene before they could show anything, before they could actually show any kind of child BJs given. Whereas this, Cuties, they actually have the girls dressed scantily, dressed sexually. I keep on saying this repeated times, I know. And they record them doing it. And keep that in the movie. Not comparable.
I want to separate this into two parts. First, there's the marketing of the film. And then there's the film itself. Okay? Because the first wave of criticism that came before the movie even came out.
Yeah,
it was a poster came out and everyone freaked out, and justifiably so. So when it
oh god, I feel like I should have a censor bar like at the ready. Like if I was doing OBS studio streaming, I would have like a censor bar covering over this. Anyway,
comes to the marketing of the movie, I agree 120%. It's,
you know what, this almost seems to be kind of hypocritical. Like people, even people who are like on the side of defending Cuties, say that this poster is absolutely nasty and inappropriate, but at the same time, they hypocritically say that the movie itself is fine, even though the movie arguably shown even more than what Netflix shown in the poster.
So now it comes to the second part. Now it comes to the actual film. The film came out recently, and
all right, so here is the part that I more care about.
I saw a whole bunch of commentary. You know what really confused me, I won't lie to you, is I saw a lot of people reviewing the movie having never watched it, which seems to be like
that bullshit argument. Here we go again. I think this is the very first thing that made me start and getting triggered at this whole video. Like, honestly, I mean, even if I was to be nice at Alba and Preach, this is just outright bullshit. You do not need to see the entirety of the movie in order to be against this movie. All you need to do is see the damning evidence. I mean, sure, if you are like some professional movie critic, movie reviewer, or whatever, and you are one to judge the movie by its story, if the movie story is part of your criticism of the movie, then sure, yeah, you got to see the movie in order to criticize the story structure itself. No shit, Sherlock. But that's not where that most anti-Cuties people were coming from. Certainly not me, anyways. My problem with the movie has nothing to do with the story structure, with the plot of the film of Cuties. My problem is with the way that this film was made. And that was, they took live action girls and started to fucking record them doing all this perverse shit and edit it into the movie. And just, by and large, showing the girls doing all this perverse shit. All the over-sexualized dancing and shit. And I saw those clips, Abba and Preach. Nothing else is relevant about my criticism towards this movie. Nothing. Zip. I've seen the damning evidence of, I mean, unless you want to try and convince me that really Mamuna Decor and the other makers of this movie, what they actually did was that they took some very hyper-realistic looking CGI and did CGI girls and not live action real life girls, then you can fuck off as far as my criticism personally of the movie being invalid.
Like a trend now. If you're going to critique the film, it's much better if you watch it so that you can properly dissect it and point out every point that's negative.
I don't care about every point that's negative about it. I only care about one big, fat, glaring negative thing about it. Asshole.
But if you don't even watch it, you can't participate in this conversation in a meaningful way.
Piss off.
Is I saw a lot of people reviewing the movie having never watched it, which seems to be like a trend now. If you're going to critique the film, it's much better if you watch it so that you can properly dissect it and point out every point that's negative. But if you don't even watch it, you can't participate in this conversation in a meaningful way, whether you're for or against it. If you want to really dissect this movie and throw it in the garbage, you have to actually see it to know what it's about. Even like YouTubers.
Okay, if the criticism that I have to say is like copy paste of, say, Arkham Knight Rider. You guys know that back in 2020, I did a live stream that was originally meant for something else, but ended up being responding to Black Critic Guy when it comes to Cuties. In that live stream, Arkham revealed that he saw the movie in its entirety. And then I edited together like a compilation clip of all the highlights of that live stream, of my biggest rages, of Arkham's most, sharp criticisms of the movie and everything. And anyway, long and short, he said that he's watched the movie himself. And his arguments are exactly the same as mine on why this movie is garbage. Plus, he says that the story is trash as well, and maybe a few other things as well. Almost word for word, he says the same thing as me, that this movie is trash because it sexualizes real life girls in live action footage. So if you're not going to take my word for it, take his word for it. But aside from that, no, it's not necessary. I've seen all I need to see. You are just deflecting. You are completely illogically deflecting.
Absolutely.
I watched the video and I'm like, okay, like, disclaimer, I didn't watch it. Well, I'm like, then why are you reporting this stuff to me?
The video.
Listen, dickhead. Listen to the entirety of the video of what their criticisms are. If they say anything about the story, well then fine. Dismiss that bit of criticism, saying of how that the story is bad, saying how the acting is bad, the cinematography is bad, or whatever else have you. Dismiss those criticisms. Fine, whatever. But when it comes to the issue of whether or not a movie director should be using real life girls and sexualizing them in this sort of matter, no matter what the purpose of the film is, to say that that is immoral, you're going to dismiss that?
Come from a dance background. Like, I've been dancing for over 10 years now, Preach probably way longer than me.
Yeah. And I judged competitions. When
I saw the outfits that everyone was freaking out over, I'll be honest with you guys, this is literally what you see at every dance recital. I can pull up videos on YouTube.
Now, it's funny that they say that because just recently, you know, I wonder if I can quickly pull it up here. 1 second. It's funny because there was another video that they did that was sometime around the time of September 2020 of where that they themselves were critical of Dance Moms. That was the name of the show that I was trying to think of. They were critical of Dance Moms. So they said that Dance Moms was pretty bad.
Like, I've been dancing for over 10 years now. Preach probably way longer than me.
Yeah. And I judged competitions.
When I saw the outfits that everyone was freaking out over, I'll be honest with you guys, this is literally what you see at every dance recital.
Okay. And you condemned dance recitals, specifically Dance Moms, for similar shit like this.
I can pull up videos on YouTube right now of dance recitals all across this country, all across the US, all across Europe.
And
girls are dressing like that every single day. I'm talking about even when they go to dance classes.
And
you see girls 8, 7, 11, 12.
And you condemned those things. You condemned those things. So, ergo, on the same token, you should be condemning Cuties for having these girls dress in similar manners for the whole, and record it and make a video, edit together a movie about it for the whole world to see.
Dress like that every single day. Pop in an episode of Dance Moms. What they make those kids wear is way more revolting than even what...
Bullshit. Bullshit. I mean, just going off of the freaking... The fucking poster alone, the movie poster alone, is like bad enough. Okay, sorry. Just going off of the movie poster alone, the worst outfit that they probably are wearing are those two-piece, scantily clad, like blue dress things.
And everything.
There are twerk teams that you can find right now on YouTube with millions of views, millions of likes. No,
and those are bad, huh? You're calling those bad, right? If those are bad, then Mahmoud Decor having these girls do the same exact shit, but for the purpose of making a movie that's anti-preteen sexualization, you should be condemning of that too.
no hubba. When I saw it in the dance world, I didn't like it. Personally, I thought that they were over.
Then why are you being so fickle about criticizing about the fact that they recorded preteens dressing in these two-piece outfits and twerking and gyrating?
Now, this is a conversation that we've been having for years. 4 years. So when I pop...
Why? What is the disconnect? If this is a conversation you've been having for years, well, then why aren't you critical of Cuties as well by the same token? They're just letting themselves get gaslit into idiocy, into brain-dead idiocy. In case anybody doesn't know, because the name isn't showing right now in the live stream, but this right here is Arkham Knight Rider, the guy that I was mentioning earlier, who has seen the entirety of Cuties, and his thoughts are the same as mine as far as why exactly this movie is bad. Putting aside the story and the acting and everything else like that, go on and tell it.
I mean, it's not really a badge of honor. It's not really a great badge of honor to begin with. But
no,
yes,
I gotcha.
I did. I did not actually go to Netflix itself to watch it because, well, I think that's pretty obvious. So I watched it in funny places, mainly an old HD Best, which was an old website that's no longer up anymore. But what I do know for certain is that it was a train wreck. I hated it. It's in my top 10 worst. It's in the 10. I should say top 10. It's in the 10 worst movies I've ever seen. It's awful. It's not a good movie on its own merits, and it's a really just gross movie. Because okay, fine,
right.
You know, trying to highlight this objectively bad thing that's happening. Okay. The one thing that I've always had issue, if it's live action, and if it ends up glorifying it, like how the camera works, optimizing it, and if there's real kids involved. That movie hit all three of those. I barely remember it, by the way. Fun fact: I remember parts of it, but again, it's been 4 years now since I've seen it. That's because again, I only watched it once, and yeah, I ain't touching it again.
Yeah, but the reason why I mentioned you was because Alvin Preacher pulled up the bullshit deflection of you haven't seen the movie, so therefore you have no right to criticize it if you haven't seen it. Yeah.
Okay, if it was like a movie, like say, I don't know, a random slasher film or a random movie in general that doesn't have anything objectable about it, fine. That's okay. That's a decent. Sometimes people are like, the new product movie sucks because it looks bad and I haven't seen it. Fine. But with a movie that does something like sexualize real children, I think that kind of like goes out of the window. It's like that's objectively bad. Regardless what the intent was, using real children and putting them in that situation. If it was like an animated movie and because one of the rules, there's maybe you could correct me, but there's a law, certain laws, depending on where you are, with certain, those kinds of material, those kinds of things. It cannot represent real people. It can't be realistic enough. Nor can it have real people. So if it was like adults voicing them and it wasn't glorifying it, and if it was like, you know, about this like animated, I'd say depending on how good or bad it is or how exploitative it is, I can see it working. But in its current state, no, absolutely not.
And so at no point in the movie did I feel like they were glorifying it or making it look positive. They did the opposite.
That's at least on the surface of what their intentions are, but who knows? Maybe, I mean, not to screw on the tinfoil hat here a little bit too tightly here, people, but maybe there's like a underhanded intention on the part of Maimuna Decor that she's going to make a movie that utilizes the sexualization of children, supposedly to make a movie that is allegedly against the sexualizing of kids, in order to open the gates possibly for somebody in the future to utilizing the sexualization of kids in a movie to try and say that sexualizing kids is okay.
I would agree with that point, except the movie, it doesn't do that a lot. Here's the funny thing with the movie, and it's not saying
I understand that Cuties does not do that specifically. I'm just like
oh yeah, no,
kind of hyper theorizing here, but it's just it's kind of a baseless theory. Like y'all dismiss that if you want to, but it's just that they're hinging a lot of the movie off of its intentions. And I guess what I need to say more accurately is that the intentions are irrelevant. I mean, you recall Babylon Bee and what their reactions were to the whole Cuties controversy, right?
I know they made fun of it. They made fun of the not really of the contract. They made fun of the idea of Cuties itself. They were like,
right, but we're going to show what exactly they said.
They made the we're gonna make a movie that's anti-killing puppies or whatever by shooting puppies.
Exactly.
Guys, we're gonna show why it's bad by doing the same thing. It's bad, guys. It's the same thing here, and that's more like what it is, because for some goofball reasons, weird standards in France with their movies, they have like French directors like this. It's like, no, we got to show everything. We got to show it, like, and do the thing to prove that it's bad. Like, okay,
yeah,
stop.
Honestly, I don't even think that a documentary that goes on talking about rape, okay, I don't want to say rape culture because that's an obvious like a feminist buzzword, but I don't think any documentary about rape and any kind of culture that perpetuates rape has ever like shown an actual rape happening.
No,
like,
they
if
don't.
There is caught footage of you know, say that for example somebody was like making literal rape porn and the woman actress that was dragged into this, she literally did not consent to the making of this porn, and so dude one just goes on to all ham raping of the girl, and then dude two is recording it, and then I don't know, the police like find this footage, and then somewhere it's deep in an archive, then some other guy, movie director, wants to make a documentary about the immoralness of raping and all of that. Somehow he gets his hands, legally speaking, on this footage, and therefore he shows that the very rape footage in order to make the point. I don't think any documentary about rape has ever did shit like that.
No. I can point to two documentaries that not covered that subject, but covered other subjects that there's two in particular. The Don't Fuck with Cats documentary and Grizzly Man, I think. The Grizzly Man, that was about the, I forgot the guy's name, the guy who was mauled to death by a grizzly bear, ended up getting mauled to death. They never showed the video, like, at all. There's some noises of it, but, like, you can hear some of the sound of it, but you cannot see the video. The Don't Fuck with Cats video is about, you know, Luca Magnotta, or familiar with that name?
No.
Serial killer, essentially. He was a guy who killed animals and was infamous for killing a random guy, some guy, I forgot the guy's name, but he killed that person. It did horrible things to him after, and they never showed the video there. You don't usually show, good documentaries tend not to show, like, be exploitative. So that's a general rule for documentaries, unless you're like, no. I can't think of any documentary that has done that.
She catches one of the kid that was in the crew that she replaced, and what did she do? She comes out of the bathroom and she was throwing up. Yeah, she's a bit chubby, so there's also the image.
Yep,
the image. So there's a lot of, it's really commentary on what is really happening, and saying, yo, you can't show that, you can't show that. See, exactly. You see there, see there, you are uncomfortable with the truth.
You know why they cannot do? Okay. No. Fucking straw man. Nobody is saying that you cannot show a kid puking up or even simulating puking. That's completely different from sexualizing real girls.
No criticisms of that. Yeah, no. There was no one criticized that.
The only thing, the one and only thing that people are saying that cannot be shown is the sexualizing of these kids. It practically is the production of child porn, even if it's a soft core variant of it. But even if it's for like a different purpose than selling CP to actual pedophiles, that is the main thing that we're having a problem with here. We do not have a problem with the raw messages in movies and showing the raw scenes as they are, except when it comes to the exploiting and sexualization of underage people.
And I saw the post on Twitter. People were just kind of like posting like a list of like bad scenes in this movie but they were out of.
Oh no, you gotta understand. The exploitation of children was out of context. You gotta understand, guys. It was out of context. There was a reason why we needed a scene where a child was being exploited. Okay, it was to show, but it was bad. Guys, the real child being exploited, it's okay. That's essentially what they're trying to say here. Like, that's legitimately what they're trying to say. That's, yeah.
Doing is wrong, and she decides she doesn't want to do this kind of dance anymore, and she goes back home and she chooses a life of more modesty instead of that. So to use her in that outfit right before the climax seems so counterintuitive because it's not a representation of the movie.
The thing that happened is that people have to understand there's a lot of scenes in the movie that are uncomfortable, and sometimes you have.
Stop it. Stop saying that. It's not discomfort itself that people are having a problem with. In fact, you know, fuck our feelings. Fuck our feelings. It's not our feelings as to why that we are against this movie. It's the fact that those preteens were freaking sexualized. It is for their sake, honestly. Even if they might not know it, even if they are like being gaslit by all the adults in their lives to say, oh, it was okay of what you did for the production of Cuties, blah, 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 blah. It is for their sakes why that we are speaking out against this shit. And the fact that this movie exists still, even in other parts of the world, that just puts forth the precedent for the continuing sexualization of kids in a sort of way. And honestly, I know that people are going to say, but what about dance moms and beauty pageants? You know what? Fuck that. Actually, no. Sorry, not fuck that. You're right. That's wrong too, because the fact that those exist as well, equally speaking, also sets forth the precedent and the perpetuation of more child sexualization.
Yeah. Again,
purely because our feelings. Oh, I am so uncomfortable.
It's just morally wrong. Like, I think that's my sense.
Preach. Fuck out of here.
What am I showing you? I can't show you the example if I don't have the example itself.
Right. It's hard to give people an idea of how bad the cartel war is if I don't show you Pablo Escobar cutting the dude's head off. If I don't show you
what?
Why would you? That's been a huge. Okay, this has been a huge. I'm familiar with these kinds of. There has been a huge wave, rightfully so, of people criticizing those like showing gore videos. I mean, the Plague Moth, for instance, is a good example of a YouTuber that's been criticized heavily for exploiting and making fun of the points and doing this kind of like showing, even having uncensored gore reaction videos. Oh, but also he said at the end they're bad, so it's okay that he did it. Like, no, you don't need to show. Most people know that cartel beheadings exist. Most general people, unless you're not in the cartel, unless you're in the cartel themselves, hate that. Think it's wrong.
Apparently, according to Abba, the only fucking way to effectively get through the message that beheading people is wrong is to show X-rated movies of real life beheading footage to people.
You gotta show the ISIS. It was important to prove that it exists.
If I don't show you him feeding a body to animals, if I don't show you kids being shot for not being a good lookout, if I don't show you the depravity of that event, then you won't understand how you're supposed to feel about it when you watch it. In that same token, when I watch this.
So hold on a minute. I think most people raised from younger respectfully have good. Not every person, but what they should be is raised to have proper morals. Violence towards innocence is bad. Bad things happening is bad. Stuff like that. I don't need a documentary showing cartels are evil. Cartels doing evil things are evil.
Yeah, just going.
Okay, I can understand like exposing like talking about it is one thing, but to actually show the cartel um, cutting a guy head off the chainsaw, for instance, which I think happens. I've heard about that, never seen it because, well, obvious reasons. But
Yeah, I
like
mean,
stuff like that. You don't need to show them doing that act. You can just have you'll discuss it, or maybe a blurred something, or maybe before the video, before the actual act, which certain videos have done.
honestly,
Like
unless somebody is going to actually deny death, which in that case, you're going to need a whole lot more than just even simulated footage of death going on, like the end of Rambo 4, for example. You're going to need a whole lot more than that kind of shit in order to convince somebody who wants to debate the, I don't know, how many people died in the Holocaust, really, or some shit like that. If somebody is like, there is at least a base level. Like, as long as everybody acknowledges the right to life for people, you shouldn't have to like show R-rated footage of every, even if we're just talking about simulated death here and not actual death, like live footage of real life people dying and so forth. You shouldn't have to show R-rated shit every single time when you want to go making a documentary or a movie about how terrible some person is. I mean, yeah, as long as it's simulated death and you're not actually killing people, I don't care. I'm not going to go on some Karen-esque Puritan crusade against, say, Evil Dead Rise, for example, because as far as I know, all the violence that they shown in that piece of shit movie, as much as I dislike it, was simulated. So therefore, I don't see why I should go on a crusade about it. I just don't like it. But
I haven't seen Evil
still,
Dead
I mean, it's not
Rise.
needed every single time, R-rated footage.
This movie, I did not leave it thinking, oh, I can't wait to watch 11-year-olds do that again. I left it thinking, when I raise my kids, I don't think I ever want them to join a dance troupe.
Good for you. Good for you. But you know what? Honestly, you shouldn't have needed to actually see girls being sexualized, being recorded being sexualized, and then having that footage edited into a movie called Cuties in order for you to know that is wrong, Abba, to know that you should not do that.
Especially since they've already said, oh, they know this experience, they've done this before, so they know.
Yeah, you know what? That's
Why
even
would you?
better.
Why would you guys need to? If you already understand, this is already repeating basic information that you're already familiar with. I'm guessing they're referring mainly also to people who don't know the extent. Which in that case, the only people that I know who still do beauty pageants are like weirdos or like weirdo moms with no morals. But guess what? Those are, I wouldn't say they don't exist, because they do. There's plenty of terrible people in this world. But those people, the general public, is not that. They aren't like Honey Boo Boo's mom or whatever Honey Boo Boo's mom name was. They're not that. Not every mom is like that. They don't need to be like, again, that's fine if they wanted to reflect, like, this was how it was, but again, trying to end up doing the same, being just as exploitive as the thing they're criticizing is my big issue here, and why I generally hated it, because it's like, it's a self-defeating movie. It completely defeats its own point of existence, not the message itself, but more so the point of the film, which is to demonstrate this is bad, to show the story of a girl who was led astray to this bad crowd because of her own family life. That story too has also been replicated before in other films. That they didn't need to be like this. So yeah, let's continue.
I mean, even if, say, for example, Abba and Preach did not have their own personal experience with dancing, which that should show that they individually did not need to see Cuties in order to get the message in the first place. But putting that aside, pretend that they did not have their own personal experience as far as the dancing goes and how risque and predatory even that some of the adults coaching those underage dancers could be. Putting that aside, they did not have to see specifically Cuties. I mean, you mentioned the movies before, like Hard Candy, for example, Arkham, that go tackling the issue of children being sexualized, but without children actually being sexualized in the production of the movie.
There's also a No Child Like Mine, which does not have like anything related to that kind of content, and yet still doesn't. I wouldn't recommend that movie to you, because that film is very hard to watch. I don't even recommend. It's a movie that it is an excellent film, but it's a movie I never want to watch again.
The movie is not the problem. The problem is all the things that they talk about in the movie.
Yes.
Whilst ironically enough, doing all the things that they talk about in the movie.
That's the problem. I think it's a subject. I'm not going to say, oh, you can't tell that story. Maybe I didn't make that clear when I first talked about it.
Yeah.
That's not the point I'm trying to make. I'm not trying to have it to where it's like you can't
Keep
tell.
talking. I said keep talking. I just need to grab something.
It's not like you don't want to have it to where like, oh, you need to like, you can't tell anything explicit or any kind of horrifying story. No, that's not what the point I'm trying to make here. The point I'm trying to make here more than anything is when it comes to these subject matters, you don't have to go all the way. You don't have to show every little thing, or else you just kind of become the thing. Again, I probably repeat that a million times, but I want to emphasize it yet again here.
The problem is not in the movie. The problem is in actual reality.
Yeah.
And it's depicting that,
You know what also is reality? Those girls exist. Those girls were dressed in a certain way. Those girls were directed to dance in a certain way. Those girls were recorded by Mamuna Decor and her film crew. And those girls had that footage of them dressing scantily, dancing sexually, and edited into Cuties for the whole world to see their scantily clad asses.
And it doesn't have the same impact when you have an older person, because when I'm looking at this 11-year-old,
cut away from the scene then before you actually show any kind of sex stuff. All you got to do is like give heavy implications and maybe have some raw facial acting or body language, not necessarily sexual body language. Fuck no, but just kind of a cringing and squirming around kind of thing. But they're bringing up the example here pretty soon. Let's just wait.
and I'm seeing what she's doing in order to get likes. It's showing me the links that young children have to go. And I'm seeing an innocent child having to go to these links. It hits you harder.
Yeah.
I remember watching Beasts of No Nation.
You know what? I think they can. Okay, here it is. But before we get on with that, honestly, they can show all that stuff as far as the girl actresses and Cuties go without having to include all these sexual dancing. I mean, do they really have to include that? Could they just cut out all the sexual dancing in order to get the movie across still? But anyway.
Well, according to the filmmaker, they have to show everything.
I guess.
They can understand everything.
But anyway.
No, let's continue.
Yeah. Full context here, by the way, y'all. I've watched Beasts of No Nation in its entirety. It's been a few years, but still, I've seen it. Have you seen it?
What is that, by the way? I'm curious. I'm not familiar.
You're not familiar with Beasts of No Nation?
I've heard the name, but I don't know what it's about.
It's a movie about this one young boy. I can't remember the kid's name. Maybe I should look it up. But the main character, he is his family ends up getting killed, and he ends up getting dragged in a war by some Beasts of No Nation. He get dragged into a war by a warlord played by Idris Elba and Agu. That's the name of the main character. Abraham Atta was the name of the actor for Agu, but it's a story about a boy named Agu who gets his family killed in the midst of a war. Then he gets dragged into the war, conscripted as a soldier, and trained and ordered around by Idris Elba character. And there's a later points that is kind of sexual, but let's get into it. We'll cross that bridge when we come to it as to how that it's not as bad as Cuties.
And there's a scene where Idris Elba takes one of the child soldiers and says, "Come to my room." And basically, he's going to get one of the child soldiers that he just used to massacre a village to basically give him some top. And
you know what the difference is right there, Abba?
They probably don't show it.
Yes. Well, Arkham, you spoiled it. No. Anyway.
I'm just guessing because of how you're setting up. It's very easy to figure that out.
Okay,
Also,
yeah, you're right. But
also, because
that is the difference, though. To say it's great, though. Sorry, what?
Also, because I heard nothing about this movie before you mentioned it, so.
Yeah, but I mean, I guess to say it straight, the difference here, Abba, is that the scene cuts away from that clip before they show anything, before they show Agu giving a BJ to the Idris Elba character. They don't record Abraham Atta doing the shit with Idris Elba. No, they cut away right before showing that. They cut away to the next clip being Agu walking out of the room looking all traumatized in the face and everything. Like, he is like a really good actor. Abraham Atta really is. Like, you just have to see it yourself to believe it. But the guy is like really spectacular. How he delivers such a raw performance, and he shows it in the face as he like walks out of that room all traumatized and goes like being comforted by his one battle buddy next to him right there on the stairs waiting outside of the room. I mean, we don't need to see anything, but it's heavily implied to us damn well enough by some phenomenal acting and Idris Elba as his characters are like, I love you, Agu. Come here. Cut away. That's all that was needed. The difference is that they, again, extra emphasis. Your analogy here, your comparison here is not valid, Abba, purely because of the fact that Beasts of No Nation cut away from that scene before they could show anything, before they could actually show any kind of child BJs given. Whereas this, Cuties, they actually have the girls dressed scantily, dressed sexually. I keep on saying this repeated times, I know. And they record them doing it. And keep that in the movie. Not comparable. Capiche? And you know what? This was actually the example that this is the biggest reason why we're here right now. Is because this was the example that I was going to bring in my response video to Khadija when it comes to Cuties. Because honestly, she goes, I was going to use Beasts of No Nation as a good example as to how you do not need to sexualize kids in order to get through the message that, oh, sexualizing kids is not good and this is the bad effects of it and so on and so forth. And Abba and Preach here, they take the example, the very example that I was going to use, but they twist it and contort it so much in such a fallacious way that it disgusts me. You did not understand Beasts of No Nation, and you do not understand the ire that all of us anti-cuties have, you dimwit. And to think I thought you were smart at one time.
The scene is slowly built up. You don't see anything explicitly, but you understand.
Exactly, dipshit! Exactly!
Understand what he's going to do to that child. But if it hadn't been a child, the scene would have had no impact.
Absolutely.
And so,
okay, sure, yeah. The kid was there, and he gave a phenomenal performance. Perfect. That was all that was needed.
When people say you can't use a kid in that kind of context, you have to understand, one, the kid is acting. Two, nothing is...
The kid is acting,
yeah,
but he's not actually giving Idris Elba a BJ.
He's not doing the thing that...
he's not doing the thing that the movie is condemning.
Thing. Yeah.
In Cuties, the kids are being manipulated to do the very thing that the movie is supposedly condemning, that being all this sexual dancing and shit.
Explicitly shown for the most part. And three, if you don't have a child there, the scene is meaningless. And when I'm watching Narcos, there has to be kids on the lookout because kids are the only ones who can go there and be seen in public and nobody bats an eye. They're perfect. Look, it has to be them. People very liking it.
I have a question though. Do they actually shoot kids in the head in the production of that movie? Okay, maybe he was in the earlier example in regards of Pablo Escobar. He was not actually talking about real life footage of real life people being killed. But on the point of Pablo Escobar and these kid watch guards that he was pointing out here, only for them to get shot in the head. A question there, Abba. Did the director, the makers of that movie, actually shoot kids, real life kids in the head in order to get the rawness of that scene through to people who would eventually watch the movie? If not, then your example is dumb and invalid.
is not going to be the determining factor of whether or not a movie should exist. To me, that's a really backwards way. You could probably find, and nobody bats an eye. They're perfect. Look, it has to be them. A people very liking it is not going to be the determining factor of whether or not a movie should exist. To me, that's a really backwards way. You could probably find.
You could argue that. I'm more arguing that it shouldn't exist in its current state. The idea of the film has stuff like that has proven to work when made by filmmakers that aren't trying to push the extremes for no good reason or they can. But I am more against the way it is doing everything, not the idea, the core concept of it, which is to show there's the kid trying to find her way through life. That story's been done a billion times, obviously, but through this perspective, I could see maybe a better movie that didn't exploit children, but that's not the film we got, at all. So, yeah.
Honestly, he's talking about third parties supposedly getting off on the footage of the girls. I mean, and he's saying that, that's not a valid reason to say that a movie is immoral. I mean, if you want to go off on a limb, some extremely sick pervert could take images of Jake Lloyd when he was acting as little Anakin Skywalker in episode 1 of Star Wars. Are we going to say that episode 1 of Star Wars should be banned or whatever? Well, no. Obviously not. No shit. But you know why? Because because it's not like that they were doing anything that was ending up sexualizing freaking Jake Lloyd. They did not even show him shirtless, let alone did they show him in a banana hammock or something like that. So, but the difference is, be it intentionally or not, and I know that a lot of people go saying as to how that Cuties is going to end up being pedo bait. It's going to perpetuate maybe even more pedo bait for pedophiles to get off on. And it's not necessarily third-party people that are using the movie in sick ways necessarily. I mean, yeah, that is part of the reason as to why that everybody says that Cuties is bad, and any other movie that is exactly like it in the future that might be made. But it's not even just that. It's because of the fact that Maimouna Decor, for better or for worse, ended up doing the thing that the movie is supposedly condemning. It's almost like if somebody was to commit manslaughter. I mean, drunken DUI manslaughter or something because they got into the car drunk, I mean, it's still wrong regardless of what their intentions were.
Violent criminals who are going to like violent movies, Scarface, Mafia, whatever. Does that mean that we should get rid of those movies because you think it appeals to them? To me, it's not
equivalent. Not equivalent. They were not actually killing people in the production of those movies, only simulating it.
Good. It's not a good train of thought. I understand we want to protect children, and I think that is a very important conversation to have. But you don't create a better society for children by killing the importance of context. The amount of people who reply to this story or to this movie or critique the scenes without the context, to me, that's something that was so disingenuous.
The context does not outweigh the literal thing that Maimouna and her crew did.
And rash. You're setting up a society where we don't look at the full story before we react to things. Do you want to raise your kid in that? We already see how bad that's doing when it comes to news cycle, when it comes
obviously there were some people that jumped the gun. They went off of just purely the poster and gone saying that the movie purely is a movie meant to actually unironically promote the sexualization of kids. And honestly, full disclosure, when I first saw the poster for that movie, I thought the movie was a movie that was trying to promote the sexualization of kids. That was the outward, explicit intention of the people behind it. Come to find out behind the scenes that it wasn't the intention. They were actually supposedly, anyways, making a movie that was against the sexualization of children. It's questionable as to whether or not that's bullshit, but whatever. Regardless, they still ended up doing the thing that they supposedly are condemning. It is exactly like somebody who says, I think that driving drunk is wrong, but they end up doing it anyway, and they end up hurting people in the process of doing that.
Well, no, don't you understand? They did that to prove that why it's bad. You understand? They killed an innocent old lady just to prove that. You know, it really emphasizes the point. You gotta understand.
The drunk driving is bad, kids. Here, watch me get in the car to show you.
Oh, come on, it is important.